Take a breath, a real one. In through your nose, hold it a second, let it go. Simple. You've done it 500 million times without a thought. But that breath is a message from the deep past, and it is far stranger than it feels. About a fifth of the air that just filled your chest is oxygen. And for the first half of this planet's existence, there was essentially none of it. None. The sky you just breathed did not come with the earth. Something made it. And that's the secret hiding inside the whole history of this world. We tend to picture Earth as a stage, a ball of rock that sat here while life came along and lived on top of it. Tonight I want to flip that picture over. Because the air, the oceans, the white cliffs, the iron in your blood and the iron in the ground, the coal, the oil, an astonishing amount of this planet is the leftover body of living things. Life didn't just move in. Life rebuilt the house. Here's the question I want to answer for you, start to finish, in the next 20 minutes. If you squeeze the entire history of Earth, 4.5 billion years, down into a single day, from midnight to midnight, where would everything fall? When does life appear? When do the dinosaurs show up? And the part everyone gets wrong until they see it. Where do we come in? Where does all of human history, every pyramid, every war, every person you've ever heard of, land on that clock? So here's the answer up front, and everything after this will earn it. On our one-day clock, each second is about 50,000 years. Earth is born at midnight. Life shows up shockingly early, before dawn. But complex animals don't appear until 9 at night. The dinosaurs die 20 minutes before midnight, and every human being who has ever lived fits into the last 6 seconds. All of recorded history, 5,000 years of it, is the final tenth of a second before the clock strikes 12. Hold that. Now let's live the day hour by hour and watch life remake the planet as we go. Midnight. There is no Earth yet, just a flat disk of dust and gas turning around a young sun. Then the dust starts to clump. Pebbles into boulders, boulders into mountains, mountains into a red-hot ball of molten rock, growing as it swallows everything in its path. This is Earth's first hour, and it is a vision of hell. No ocean, no crust you could stand on, a churning sea of lava under a black sky. Scientists literally named this chapter the Hadean, after Hades, the underworld. That's how grim the newborn Earth was. And then, still in that first hour, the single most violent thing that ever happened to us. Another young planet, about the size of Mars, and scientists have given it a name, Theia, was sharing our lane around the sun. The two worlds collided. Not a graze, a head-on merging of two planets that flung a spray of molten rock into orbit, and that debris pulled itself together into the moon. Stop and feel that. The moon in your sky tonight is a splash, a piece of the young Earth thrown off in a collision, still hanging over us 4.5 billion years later. After the fire came water. As the surface cooled, steam wrapped the planet, and for possibly millions of years it rained. A rain that filled the first oceans. And here's the first, wait, really. Almost as soon as there was warm water to live in, by a little after 4 in the morning on our clock, something in it was already alive. Life did not wait around for a gentle planet. It appeared on a bruised, barely cooled world before the sun of the first day had even come up. So what was that first life? Nothing you could see. Single cells, microbes, living in the water, feeding on chemistry from the rocks and vents. For a long, long stretch of the morning, that's the whole story of life on Earth. Invisibly small and everywhere, but do not mistake small for unimportant, because these microbes were about to pull off an invention that would rebuild the entire planet, and it started as nothing more than a new way to eat. The invention was photosynthesis, the trick of catching sunlight and using it to make food. Certain microbes, the cyanobacteria, learned to do it, and their process had a waste product they simply threw away, a gas that was, to almost everything alive back then, a deadly poison. That gas was oxygen. Read that again. The oxygen you cannot live without began as pollution, toxic exhaust, pumped into the sky by pond scum for hundreds of millions of years. The most important thing in your lungs started life as garbage. And you can still see what that oxygen did. When it first bubbled into the oceans, it met all the iron dissolved in the seawater and did to it exactly what oxygen does to iron in your garden. It rusted it. The iron rusted out of the water and sank, layer after layer, for hundreds of millions of years. Those layers are still here, folded into rock all over the world. Beautiful red and black striped stone called banded iron. Here's the part that ought to stop you. Most of the iron we mine today, the steel in your car, your fridge, the bridge you drive over, comes from that rusted ancient ocean. We build our whole world out of the rust that early life breathed out. For a long time, the oceans soaked up the oxygen, and the sky stayed empty. But the microbes kept pumping, and around 11 in the morning on our clock, about 2.5 billion years ago, the oceans finally couldn't hold any more, and oxygen spilled into the air for the first time. Scientists call it the Great Oxidation Event. It has a friendlier nickname, the Oxygen Catastrophe, because for almost everything alive at the time, this new gas was lethal. This was, as far as we can tell, the first mass extinction in Earth's history, and life did it to itself. The oxygen makers poisoned the world for everyone else, and vast populations of microbes that couldn't tolerate it simply died out. It may also have helped trigger one of the coldest events the planet has ever known. Think about the sheer strangeness of that. Life's greatest invention was also its first great catastrophe. The same act that would one day let you breathe first wiped out most of the living world. That is the pattern of this whole story, life reshaping the planet, for better and for worse, again and again. And then, for well over 1 billion years, not much happens. Life stays small and simple. Geologists half-jokingly call this the boring billion. But it isn't really boring. It's loading. Behind the calm, cells were slowly learning to cooperate, to build more complex machinery inside themselves, to become the kind of life that could one day grow into something you could actually see. The planet was taking a long, slow breath before the most explosive chapter of all. Now the clock jumps to the evening and everything speeds up. First, the planet nearly freezes to death. Twice. Around 3/4 billion years ago, the whole Earth may have iced over pole to equator. A white ball hurtling through space, oceans capped in ice possibly a mile thick. We call it Snowball Earth. And yet life hung on under the ice, and when the planet finally thawed, something new was ready. At about 9 o'clock at night, after a full day of nothing but microbes and slime, the fossil record does something almost unbelievable. In a geological blink, animals appear. Not one kind, nearly every basic body plan alive today shows up at once. Things with legs, with eyes, with shells, with guts, with backbones to be. Predators and prey. It's so sudden that scientists named it the Cambrian explosion. Here's the wait, really. Creatures had existed on Earth for the entire day, and animals, as we'd recognize them, only turned up in the last 3 hours. And why then? A big part of the answer takes us right back to our main idea. It took oxygen, enough of it, finally, after 2 billion years of microbes making it, to run a body as hungry and active as an animal's. Big active life is expensive. It needs the fuel that only an oxygen-rich world can provide. So the animals in that sea, and every animal since, including you, are only possible because pond scum spent 2 billion years terraforming the sky. You are, quite literally, living off their work. For the whole day so far, all the drama has been underwater. The land, every continent, was bare rock and sand, no soil, no green, silent. Then, at around 9:30 at night, life crawls out. First the plants, small, low, hugging the wet ground, about 470 million years ago. And once plants took hold, they did the microbe trick all over again on a grand scale. They built soil, they pulled carbon out of the air, and they pumped out so much oxygen that the land itself became livable. Life didn't find a green planet. Life made the planet green. Then came the forests, and one of them still powers your life today. Around 300 million years ago, the land was covered in giant swampy forests of strange tree-sized ferns. So much plant matter grew, died, and got buried without fully rotting that it was pressed, over hundreds of millions of years, into black rock. We call that rock coal. The oil and gas we burn come from the buried remains of ancient life, too. Every time an engine turns over, it is burning sunlight that was captured by living things hundreds of millions of years ago. Our entire modern world runs on the fossilized bodies of the deep past. Those forests pumped oxygen so high that insects grew into giants. Dragonflies with the wingspan of a hawk, millipedes longer than your leg. But the clock keeps moving, and the story of the last hour is not just life rising, it's life nearly ending. 5 times in this final stretch, the fossil record shows a mass extinction, a moment when a huge share of all living things vanishes. 5 great dyings. The worst of the 5 is almost too big to picture. About 252 million years ago, call it 11 o'clock at night, enormous volcanic eruptions poisoned the air and seas for thousands of years. Roughly 9 in 10 species on Earth died. 9 in 10. Scientists call it simply the Great Dying, and life came within a whisker of being switched off for good. It took millions of years to recover, and out of that recovery, crawling into an emptied world, came a new kind of animal ready to take over. The dinosaurs. They appear around 230 million years ago and ruled the planet for an almost unimaginable stretch, more than 150 million years. Stop and feel how long that is. On our clock, the dinosaurs reigned for well over an hour, from before 11 until nearly midnight. Human civilization, remember, is 1/10 of a second. The dinosaurs weren't a short chapter that failed. By any measure that matters, they were one of the most successful forms of life this planet has ever produced. And then, 20 minutes before midnight, 66 million years ago, the sky fell. A mountain-sized asteroid, wider than a city, slammed into what is now Mexico at tens of thousands of miles an hour. The impact threw so much debris into the air that the whole world went dark and cold for years. Plants failed, food chains collapsed. 3/4 of all species died, and every large dinosaur was gone. The single most successful animals in Earth's history ended in an afternoon, by a rock from space. But an ending for one kind of life is an opening for another. In the ruins after the asteroid, small furry survivors that had been scurrying underfoot for over 100 million years finally had room to grow. Mammals. They spread, they diversified, and, on one branch of that family, in the final minutes of our day, appeared apes, and then, on one twig of one branch, us. So here it is, the answer to where we land. Our species, Homo sapiens, is about 300,000 years old. On the 24-hour clock of Earth, that is roughly the last 6 seconds before midnight. Everything you have ever heard of that a human did, cave paintings, farming, the pyramids, Rome, Every empire, every invention, every person in every history book happened in those final 6 seconds. And all of recorded history, from the first written word until right now, fits into the last tenth of a second. One tick. That's us. And yet, here's the last wait, really, and it's the heaviest one. In that tenth of a second, this one young species has started doing the thing that microbes and forests took hundreds of millions of years to do. We are changing the whole planet's atmosphere. We are digging up that ancient buried carbon, the coal from those old forests, the oil from those old seas, and burning it back into the sky faster than any natural process ever did. In the deep story of Earth, we have just become one of those planet-shaping forces of life, the newest one, and the fastest one there has ever been. So let's close the loop. The question was, fit 4.5 billion years into a single day. Where does everything fall, and where do we? Here's the whole day in one breath. Midnight, a planet born in fire struck so hard it made the moon. Before dawn, the first tiny life. All morning, microbes quietly rebuilding the sky, rusting the oceans into the iron we mine, filling the air with the oxygen that would one day be poison, then progress. 9 at night, animals explode into being. The final hour, green spreads onto bare land, giant forests turn into our coal, dinosaurs rise and rule and fall to a rock from space. And the last 6 seconds, us. And here's the takeaway to walk away with. Earth is not a stage that life happened to appear on. Earth and life grew up together. The breathable sky, the striped iron in the ground, the white chalk cliffs made of dead plankton, the coal and the oil, the very soil under the grass, living things built all of it. The planet you stand on is, to a startling degree, something life made. That's the real history of Earth. Not a rock with life on it, but a world and its life shaping each other, turn by turn, for 4.5 billion years.